And there are a couple things that this version, the Ocarina of Time 3D version for the 3DS, there's a couple things they did in this to improve on Ocarina's design, but only in the sense that, hey, we've learned some lessons about how to make a good 3D Zelda game since 1998. Let's apply some of what we've learned. So the core design is still excellent, but a couple of improvements were added, which we'll get into in the fullness of time. 2, your turn, 3, and 23 is number 1. So now we talk to this guy. He has to open the door for us, and later Queen Goma is going to take it out on him. And every time you kill monsters and a door opens up, Link spins around. And I don't know why he does that, but I'm really glad he does that, because I enjoy it every time it happens. Here's our first boss, the Queen Goma. And to even get the fight started, you gotta look up in her gross red eyeball. Whatever you say, Queenie. We're gonna make real short work of her if we can. Oh, my lock-on didn't work. See? There we go. We gotta turn red. Ha! But that's something that happens in every 3D game I play, is camera foibles. Oh, my lock-on decided to not work there. I played 2 hours of Dark Souls. I must have said that 1,000 times. Oh, I guess my lock-on's just not gonna work now. Now we break these eggs open. And now we're ready for round 2. Link's like jumping slash is more powerful than his regular sword hit, which is why we're using that. There's a few monsters in the game it's better to just go ham with regular sword, but nice! You're not able to lock on when she's that far away, because your fairy's really lazy. She doesn't want to fly all the way up there, but... So one of the improvements they added, and it's the only... I'm going to be very clear about this. It is the only form of motion control I've ever liked in a video game, is in this game. And it's something that my Steam controller does too when I play PC shooters, which isn't very commonly, but it's something that I can do. The main way to aim your slingshot, or any first-person weapon in this game, is to use your control stick, but you can use the little gyrometer thing inside the 3DS to make fine-tune adjustments. If you only need to aim by 1 or 2 pixels, you can just tilt the controller. I say controller, I mean the whole 3DS, obviously. Just tilt it very slightly to gain those 2 pixels. I'll tell you what, boy. That's a feature that I always would love to have, going back to Metal Gear Solid games, where you commonly have to aim at tiny little pixels, like the guy's head, he's half a mile away, and it's dark, and you've got to hit the one dark gray pixel amidst the entire field of light gray pixels. And you can't get that kind of fine aiming with the PlayStation 3 control stick. So having the little gyrometer, I don't like doing all of my aiming with it. I still prefer using the control stick to get me there, but then the last 2 or 3 pixels, man, that just tilting the controller is a big help. But again, that's something that, yeah, you could complain about it. The aiming kind of sucks with just the control stick, but that's true of every 3D game that comes out. Every time I play a shooter game and I've got to aim with my right stick, before I got the Steam controller and I could get that. Is it called a gyrometer? Accelerometer? It's something, I don't know. But yeah, until I got that fixed, it always felt janky. From Metal Gear to Portal to whatever I play. And this is where somebody's going to leave me a comment like, Brickroad, you gotta play first-person shooters with the mouse and keyboard. What's wrong with you, PC Master Race? Nope, sorry, double sticks for me. That's why I have a fondness for Halo, I guess. So yeah, that's one of the improvements they made in Ocarina of Time 3D. But it's just a modern quality of life thing. it has nothing to do with going back to the original game and identifying a flaw and fixing that flaw. It was just, hey, we've got this accelerometer thing. We can use it so people can aim their last couple pixels. Let's go ahead and do that. There's a few more things as we go in the game. One of the big ones, actually, my favorite one, is there is an item in the original N64 version called the Stone of Agony. And what it does, it helps you find secrets in the world by making your controller shake. Point number one, I hate the controller shake. I hate rumble. I always turn it off 100% of the time. It doesn't help me with immersion. It's just annoying, and I always turn it off. So having a feature in a game that only works via the rumble is never good in my book. Point number two, N64 controllers didn't rumble unless you bought an add-on called a rumble pack and plugged it into your controller, and I never did, because if I have $20, I'm not going to spend it on a thing that makes my controller shake. Come on. So when I learned to play Ocarina, I learned to play without that Stone of Agony. In this game, the Stone of Agony just makes a little tone. It just makes a little tone, so we're going to earn it, and it might help us find some treasure boxes and Skullmans and things, but it just this little beep at you, which is perfectly fine, and so that's another improvement. That one's kind of by necessity, because I don't even think the 3DS has a rumble feature, honestly. I don't think it can shake. But I consider that a quality of life improvement, because hey, there's an item in the game that now works as intended, that never worked for me before because I didn't buy the stupid controller shaky button thing. And it's not really time to get into the rest of the improvements. So, I love Zelda games. My favorite part of Zelda games are the dungeons. In fact, when I'm being a little hyperbolic about it, I'll say that if I'm not in a dungeon or on my way to a dungeon, Zelda's just wasting my time. And maybe just by that statement alone, it'll make sense to you. Oh, that's why Brick doesn't like the Wind Princess and the Twilight Wakers as much. That's why, like, that it makes sense. Even if you don't agree, it'll make sense to you. Oh, because there's a lot of stuff in those games in between dungeons. There's a lot of little boxes you have to check and hoops you have to jump through. Like, if the Zelda dungeons are why you're here, then yeah, it makes sense why Ocarina. This game, the very first thing you do is get your sword. You do it. We do it within the first 2 minutes of gameplay. And if you don't already know to go get your sword like I do, the first thing you do is talk to the NPCs, and one of them literally says, hey, go get your sword. As opposed to Twilight Princess, where you don't get your sword until you've done a whole bunch of, you've done goat wrangling, and you've met the creepy baby kid, and you've shown everybody how your slingshot works, and you caught a fish for a cat, and you did all this running around, and you got turned into a wolf, and you collected all these bugs, and something with your oil lantern. It's like, oh my god. 17 hours later, now you have your sword. We have to roll a lot. Rolling is slightly faster than walking, and I really don't like it in games when your most efficient form of travel is something that's obnoxious. I'd rather just run. But we have to make it to Hyrule Castle before nightfall, and I don't think we can get there just by running. I think if we roll all the way, we'll just barely get there before the bridge goes up. So that's what we're going to do. There's actually faster ways of movement. I don't know if they work in this version, actually, but they involve, like, placing a bomb and pulling your shield out and facing backwards. Actually, running backwards is faster than just walking in this game, but I'm not going to run backwards everywhere. In fact, when I watch speedruns of this game, that really bothers me that they run backwards everywhere. I mean, I get it. You've got to move fast. You got to Sonic the Hedgehog it up, but it really does bug me in this game that this is the fastest way to travel outside of glitchiness. But this is the one and only time that we're really going to be on a harsh time crunch in the whole game. We got to make it to that drawbridge before the sun goes down, or we've got to fight skeletons for a couple of minutes. If I can help it, I'd rather not fight the skeletons for a couple minutes. Like, we're already at dusk. As long as we put a foot on that drawbridge, I think we'll be fine. Boom. Okay, we're there. We got it. Whew. The first thing we're going to do is go in here. There's a guard in here, and, you know, I'm going to break all his pots and take all his rupees. I can only carry 99 rupees, and it's going to be a while before we actually need any rupees, but hey, you know, there's a whole bunch of them laying around in here. Why leave them on the table, right? I don't think we have to buy anything at all in this first recording session. I think we're good all the way to the end of it. So we're going to go ahead and meet our first lovable NPC. This is Malin, and we're going to talk to her she's like a pretty important minor NPC in the game. We're going to talk to her 3 or 4 times. It's going to be fantastic. And I think there's we have to get Malin on this map as our next plot flag, and I think there's 2 ways to do it. I think one way to do it is just to get caught by one of these guards. So we're just the owl's going to tell us, hey man, don't get caught by the guards. Also, this is how time works in this game. There's a day-night cycle. And you do have to be really careful at the end of conversations in this game. Every NPC that like gives you some story exposition, at the end of it, you get a yes/no prompt. Asking if you want to hear it again. But they try to trick you. They word it differently. Sometimes they ask, do you want to hear what I say again? And you have to say no, or you've got to sit through the whole thing again. There's a spider in that tree at night. Don't forget this spider, kids. Sometimes they ask, do you understand what I've just told you? And then you have to say yes, instead of no. And if you get them mixed up, you got to sit through the whole cutscene again. We have to get Malin on this map, and the way to do that is easy way to do that is just to get caught by the guards. Is there a guard over here? There's not. There's one right up here, though. Hey man, whistle at me. Thank you. And now we should hear the delightful Miss Malin singing, which we do. She wants us to help her find her dad, Talon. And gives us a weird egg. Okay, so now I gotta do the forced stealth section in Ocarina. Forced stealth sections are always like the low point of basically every game. But I know the path to go, so we're not gonna get caught up here. I know to jump off the wall about here-ish. And in morning time... Wow, I actually thought that egg was time-based. Like, I thought you had to have it in your inventory for X time before it hatched. I guess it's just coded to hatch the next morning. And that's another little interface improvement they gave us. Link's Awakening lets you equip 2 items at once. Asterisk. Because if you equip 2 items, you've got to unequip your sword. Instead of having your sword and shield and an item like you do in Link to the Past, you have 2 items and your sword and shield counts as items. So on the N64, they're like, okay, we've got all these extra buttons, and we're not using the C buttons for camera control. Let's just let the player have extra items. So in that game, you can equip 3 items at once, which really helps out a lot. But for this version, they gave us, because we have the second touchscreen down there, they actually helped us out even more. First of all, the Ocarina, instead of counting as an item, because that's an item we're going to use repeatedly. That's an item you basically always want to have equipped. Pretty much every location in this game has Ocarina puzzles in it. So, in practice, on the N64, you really only had 2 item slots, because one was your Ocarina. And typically, the way I played, I liked one always being my ranged weapon, either my slingshot or my bow, depending on where in the game I was. So in practice, for me, I had 1 item slot, just like in Link to the Past. In this version, though, they give you a dedicated Ocarina button, which frees up 1 item slot, and then they give you they give you an extra item slot on top of that. So the X and the Y buttons are items, and then also I've got the corners of my touchscreen down there, the Roman numerals 1 and 2. So on my Roman numeral 2 is where I like to just keep my ranged weapon. And then Y is where I like to keep my main melee weapon. Or my secondary melee weapon. My main melee weapon is the sword. Y is like my secondary weapon. Usually X is where I like to keep bombs. But X and Y will get swapped around in the game. It's like, depending on what I need. The 1 up there I usually keep for... Let's come in behind this cat here. I usually keep for, like, toggles. Items that can be toggled on and off. Stuff like the Lens of Truth, or in this version of game, the boots. Which instead of being on your gear screen, are on your item screen. So it's just really handy. It feels like having 2 extra item buttons, because I don't need one set aside for my Ocarina, and I don't need one set aside for my bow. So to me, it's like really having 2 extra buttons. It's really good. I need you to walk up. That's where I need you to go. Thank you. It's like even as stealth sections go, like this isn't that bad. You know what I mean? Where's he gonna go? Alright, we're gonna go in behind him then. When he goes up around the left side of this hedge, we're gonna follow him up. And we're gonna try not to laugh at his delightful little shorts. Okay? It's not his fault. This is the uniform that King Adrius Hyrule the 19th forces him to wear. He said, "By royal decree, all guardsmen on the castle grounds shall wear tight little shorts." That actually happened in A Link to the Past. It's only in the Japanese version, though. They cut that version out for North America because of censorship reasons, like Nintendo of America. Having little shorts is sexually explicit, so we can't have that in the game. And also, we're going to change all the crosses to stars. That's what happened in Link to the Past. So, when I was 16, the most important thing in a video game, by far, was the story. Story was number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 8. Obviously, I've grown out of that phase of my life. I got all the fan fiction out of my system, and nowadays I'm gameplay is king. Nowadays, my mantra is like, a good story is nice to have, but no amount of good story can make up for bad gameplay. From both of those standpoints, Ocarina of Time is masterful. The storytelling in this game is a world apart from what we got even in Links to the Past or Link's Awakening. Like, you get to hear the Hyrule creation myth in Link to the Past. When you talk to, like, the Crystal Maidens, they told you about the goddesses or whatever. But in this game, on the N64 in 3D, we get to see it. The mythology really comes alive. Like, the game opens with a detailed explanation for why Link wears his little green tunic and his floppy pointy hat. Oh, he was one of the Kokiri kids, and that's what the Forest Kid wears. So, when I was 16, this game had one of the best stories I'd ever seen. The mythology of Zelda is wonderful, and I got really, really into it. I loved it. As an adult, what I really appreciate is the brevity of Ocarina of Time. Yeah, there's some expositional cutscenes. This is one of the longer ones in the game right here. But compared to just the weight of the talkie-talkie in Twilight Princess especially, Ocarina of Time is much more manageable. So nowadays, as a gameplay as king kind of guy, I still like the story of Ocarina. I still like the mythology and the setting. I like how it introduced the Gorons and the Zora and the Gerudo as all the different little cultures of Hyrule. I like how it casts Zelda as a kind of real character and gives her some real interplay between Link and Ganondorf, and how, like, the legend of the 3 Triforce Bearers. I still appreciate all that. But I really, really like not having to push through 7 hours of talkie between every single dungeon in the game. That being said, if we're gonna introduce some quality of life things, a skip cutscene button would have been appreciated, Nintendo. If you're ever gonna make a remaster of this remaster, just release this again in HD, and give me a cutscene skip button, and I'm happy. So, I'm delighted that I get to share Ocarina of Time with you guys now. Oh, I gotta learn this song, then I can do my outro. This is like the central core mechanic of Ocarina of Time. Sing it with me, kids. Here we go. X-A-Y, X-A-Y. I'm going to do that with every song, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. Absolutely nothing. You couldn't pay me to not sing those songs in this game. I'm probably going to stop doing it. I'm probably going to... It's going to wear old, and I'll forget to do it. But yeah, this is a game that I've wanted to record for you guys for years. Ever since I got it in 2011, or was it 20? Might have been 2012. I don't remember now. But finally, I have a way to record for my 3DS, and I'm delighted to share Ocarina of Time with you. I hope the fanboy gushing doesn't turn too many of you away. But at the same time, I kind of hope that I'm able to instill this specialness of Ocarina of Time with you. I don't think I've done a really personal Let's Play like this since Metal Gear Solid 3, which a lot of people responded well to, and I hope I get the same kind of response for this. So yeah, guys, thanks so much for watching, for embarking on this journey with me, and I will see you in the next episode.
Shoutouts to Eurixia for sponsoring this video, and to everybody who helps make my channel possible by supporting me on Patreon.